I'm going to tell you something. Priests don't always explain from the pulpit. It's the kind of thing you learn in a hospice room at 3 in the morning, sitting next to a woman who is dying. Her name was Beatrice. She was 81, and she was dying peacefully enough. The cancer was doing its work slowly. What tortured her was something else entirely. 14 years earlier, she had buried her husband, and she had convinced herself in every quiet moment since that God had not received him. She had sat in the front pew of a Catholic parish outside Baton Rouge in the summer of 1984. The church was full. The priest was kind. She wore her Sunday best, and she sat in that pew and felt nothing. For 14 years, that emptiness had been rotting inside her. She had convinced herself, alone in her kitchen, that her Reuben had been unheard, that the Mass had bounced off the ceiling, that he had died, and no one, not her, not God, had reached him. Baby, I'm telling you this because I think you know exactly what she was feeling. You sat in that pew too. Maybe not 14 years ago, maybe a few months, maybe last week, and you have wondered ever since if any of it reached him, if your husband or your mother or your son, if any of them were really there in a way that counts. I'm going to tell you what the church actually teaches about that, and I'm going to tell you what I saw in Beatrice's room that changed how I have prayed for the dead ever since. My name is Sister Ruth Bellamy. I spent 31 years as a hospice chaplain in Louisiana and Georgia, and I have sat at the bedside of more dying men and women than I can count. I called the priest when they needed one, and I stayed. That is what a sister does. Beatrice came into our hospice in the spring of 1998, Baton Rouge. She had breast cancer, advanced, and about 3 weeks left in her. She brought 2 things from home, her rosary and a porcelain coffee cup, cream-colored, with a chip on the rim. She set the cup on the nightstand the first afternoon, and she did not move it once in the 22 days she lived after that. It had been Reuben's cup. He had drunk his coffee from it every morning for 41 years. The second night she took my hand. She said, "Sister, I need to tell you the sin that has been eating me for 14 years. I want you to hold her there for a moment. Before we get to what she told me, I need to teach you what the church actually says about the Mass for the dead. Otherwise, the end of her story will not hit you the way it hit me. And before we say goodbye today, I'm going to give you 2 things you can use. The exact words to walk into your parish and ask for a Mass for your beloved, even if you have not been to that parish in a while, even if the priest is new, even if you are ashamed, and a short prayer to say inside your heart at the consecration, so the Mass reaches him by name. Hold on to that porcelain cup. It comes back. Here is what I want you to hear, and I want you to hear it clean. Most people talk about the funeral Mass as if it were a ceremony for the mourners, words to fill an hour, a polite way to send the body off. That is a small idea of a very large thing. The Mass is the one act on this earth where Christ himself is present, body, blood, soul, and divinity, and offered to the Father. And the church, when she offers that Mass for a specific soul, does something no one else in the world can do. She reaches that soul. The Catechism says it plain, paragraph 1032. From the earliest times, the Church has honored the memory of the dead and offered prayers on their behalf. Above all, the Eucharistic sacrifice, so that thus purified they may attain the beatific vision of God. Paragraph 1371. The Eucharistic sacrifice is offered also for the faithful departed, so that purified they may enter into the light and peace of Christ. Hear that word, sweetheart, offered for, on behalf of, on account of, for their good. That preposition is the whole doctrine right there. The Mass we say for your husband is applied to him. The Church puts his name into the hands of Christ at the altar, and Christ carries it into the Father's presence. Wherever that soul is being purified, the Mass reaches him there, directly, without needing to be delivered by you. You do not have to reach him yourself, baby. The Church does that at every altar. My grandmother always said, when we were little in the 7th Ward of New Orleans, that a Mass said for a dead man was worth more than every flower on his grave. Miss Ophelia buried 3 husbands, so she knew what she was talking about. She said flowers wilt in a day, a Mass reaches him tonight. I want to give you the words of a saint on this, because I think they will settle something in you. St. Augustine's mother, St. Monica, was dying in Italy in the year 387, far from her home in North Africa. She had one request for her son. I'm giving you the words plain, the way she said them. Bury this body wherever you will. Do not let its care disturb you. Only this one thing I ask of you, that you remember me at the altar of the Lord, wherever you may be. Do you hear what she was saying? She did not ask him to visit her grave. She did not ask him to keep her picture on the wall. She asked him for one thing, remember me at the altar, because she understood, dying, what most of us have forgotten, that the altar is where the dead are actually met. Here is the sentence I want you to memorize. I'm going to say it twice today, and I want you to write it down if you have a pen near you. The altar reaches further than any grave, and the Mass finds every soul the Church remembers by name. Say it with me if you can. The altar reaches further than any grave, and the Mass finds every soul the Church remembers by name. That is not my opinion. That is not something a sister invented to comfort widows. That is what the Church has taught since the days of the apostles, when the earliest Christians scratched the names of their dead on the walls of the catacombs, so the priest could read them out at the sacrifice. 2,000 years, sweetheart. 2,000 years the Church has been reaching your dead. She has not stopped. Now come back to that hospice room with me. Beatrice's hand in mine. The porcelain cup on the nightstand. The sin, she said, was eating her. She looked at me and she said, Sister, when we buried Reuben in 1984, I did not have a Mass said for him. Not one. The parish asked $25 for a stipend, and we had spent everything on the plot. I told myself I would have one said later. I never did. And I sat in that pew at the funeral, and I felt nothing, sister, nothing. And I have believed ever since that Reuben went into the ground and no one reached him, that he has been alone in the dark for 14 years because I was too cheap and too proud to walk back into that parish and ask. She started crying, an old cry, the kind you shed when something has been rotting in you for years and it finally breaks open. I asked her, gently, because you have to be gentle when a woman is holding a knife to her own chest, if she had ever told anyone this before. She hadn't. Not her son, not her sister, not a priest. Then she asked me to do something. She asked me to go to the closet and pull down a shoebox on the top shelf, old, brown, tied with kitchen twine. She said she had brought it with her to the hospice and had not opened it in 14 years. I set it on the bed. She untied it herself. Her hands were shaking so hard I thought the twine would defeat her, but she got it. Inside was a stack of letters, and on top, a single folded card in her husband's handwriting, dated 3 days before his last stroke. She read it aloud, because she said if she did not say the words out loud, she would not believe them. The card said, "B, if I go first, don't spend money on flowers. Have masses said for me. That's all I want. Reuben." She looked at me, and her face, sweetheart, I wish you could have seen it. It was a face that had been held upright by wrong belief for 14 years, and the beam had just cracked. She said, "Sister, I never opened this. I put it away the day of the funeral. I could not look at his handwriting, and he told me. He told me, and I did not know." Then she said the sentence I want to carry you through the rest of this video with. She said, "Sister, is it too late? I'm dying myself. Am I taking him with me into judgment?" I told her something that afternoon that answered her question. I have not told you my answer yet. You and I are going to walk to it together in a moment. First, I need to give you the other half of what the church teaches, because Beatrice's answer and yours sits inside it. I need you to sit close for a minute, because what I want to say next is between you and me, one woman to another. The church teaches that a mass offered for the dead reaches them regardless of when it is said. The day after the funeral, 10 years after the funeral, on the anniversary of the death 50 years later. God does not live inside our calendar. He receives that mass and applies it to the soul as he sees fit, in the moment his mercy chooses. St. Thomas Aquinas taught this. St. John Chrysostom taught this in the 4th century. He wrote, and I'm giving it to you in his words plain, "Let us help and commemorate the dead. If Job's sons were purified by their father's sacrifice, why would we doubt that our offerings for the dead bring them some consolation? Let us not hesitate to help those who have died and to offer our prayers for them." 1,600 years, sweetheart. 1,600 years the church has said the same thing. It is never too late. Every mass said for your beloved reaches him. Everyone. Now I want to talk to you about the funeral itself, because I know something happened to you at his funeral that you have not told anyone, and I want you to hear it from me. You sat in the front pew. You wore the black dress. You watched them carry his coffin in and set it in front of the altar. The organ played the hymn he asked for, or the hymn you picked because you could not remember what he asked for. The priest spoke his name, and you felt nothing. You looked at that box, and it did not seem to contain your husband. It seemed to contain a piece of furniture. You went through the whole mass. You stood when you were supposed to. You sat when you were supposed to. You took communion, or you did not, and you felt like you were watching it through a pane of glass. When the recessional played and they wheeled the coffin out, you thought, "What is wrong with me? Where did I go? I should be sobbing. I should be tearing at my clothes. My husband is dead, and I feel like I am watching a stranger's funeral." Baby, you carried that home with you. You have carried it every day since. You thought your numbness was evidence that you did not love him enough, evidence that God had abandoned the mass, evidence that he was gone and no one was there to meet him. I want you to hear me now, sweetheart. Your numbness was your body protecting you from what you could not have carried. The Lord built you with a valve that closes when the flood is too high. It closed at his funeral because if it had stayed open, you would not have walked out of that church on your own 2 feet. What you felt as absence was survival. And here is what your numbness could not know, sitting in that pew. Your husband was being received. The moment the priest lifted the host, the sacrifice you could not feel was being applied to him. God does not require your emotion to make His grace effective. He does not check your face for tears before He accepts the offering. The Mass is His act. You could have been unconscious. You could have been on the moon, and your husband would still have been reached, because the priest at that altar was doing something that does not depend on you. Say this with me if you can. He was received. I did not have to feel it for it to be true. If you have not had a Mass said for him since the funeral, sweetheart, listen to me. It is never too late. If it has been 1 year, 10 years, 25 years, it is never too late. Walk into your parish this week. Say the words I'm going to give you in a few minutes. The stipend is small. The parish will say the Mass, and that Mass will reach him this Sunday, or whichever day the priest schedules it, as surely as if he had died on Tuesday. 3 weeks after Beatrice died, I stood at her own funeral. What I saw there is why I am telling you any of this. Beatrice arranged from her hospice bed 30 masses for Reuben, Gregorian masses, 30 consecutive days offered for one soul, a tradition the church has kept since the 6th century. She wrote out the check with her sister sitting on the bed, helping her hold the pen. She sent it to a Benedictine monastery in Louisiana. They began the first Mass on a Wednesday. She died on the 5th day of that 30, peacefully, in her sleep. The porcelain cup was still on the nightstand, and the folded card from Reuben was tucked under her pillow. Her funeral was 3 weeks later at the same parish where Reuben had been buried in 1984. Same pews, same altar, same statue of the sorrowful mother by the side door. The priest was young. He had not known Beatrice long, but her son had told him the story of the shoebox, and when the priest stood at the altar to give the homily, he did something I had never seen a priest do at a funeral before. He said, "Today we bury Beatrice Landry, but we also finish something today. 14 years ago in this church, we buried her husband Reuben. She believed all these years that we had not reached him. She was wrong. This Mass we offer today is for her. But before I say the words of consecration, I want to speak Reuben's name at this altar, so that whatever grace God intends for Beatrice reaches him too, because they walked to the same altar side by side for 41 years, and I will not separate them today." And he said Reuben's name, Reuben James Landry. I was in the 3rd pew from the back, and I promise you, sweetheart, I felt something break open in that church, somewhere further off than my own chest, the way you feel a door open in another room when the wind changes. I do not tell you that as private revelation. I'm not a mystic. I'm an old nun. But I know what I felt, and I know what the church teaches, and the two agreed with each other in that church on that morning. Here is the sentence I gave you before. I'm going to give it to you again. The altar reaches further than any grave, and the Mass finds every soul the church remembers by name. Beatrice's Reuben was found, 14 years late by our clock, and not 1 second late by God's. Whatever purification he still needed, the 30 Masses she ordered from her deathbed did the work she thought she had failed to do in 1984. Your husband is not lost either. He has never been lost. He has only been waiting for you to know what the church has always known. Now I owe you 2 things. Get a pen if you can. I'm going to go slow. First, the words to walk into your parish and ask for a mass. If your parish office scares you, or if you have not been there in a while and you feel small, use these, word for word. Hello, Father. I would like to have a mass offered for my late husband, Frank. Whatever the stipend is, I have it. I don't need to be there for the mass. I just need to know it will be said. When is the next available date? That's it, baby. He will say yes. He will hand you a slip of paper with the date. Put that paper on your refrigerator. On the day the mass is said, at any hour that day, speak your husband's full name out loud in your kitchen and cross yourself. That mass belongs to him. Second, the prayer to say inside your heart at any mass when the priest lifts the host at the consecration. It's short. Learn it. Lord Jesus, at this altar I place my Frank. Whatever purification he still needs, do it now in this sacrifice. When I receive your body and blood, let it be for him as much as for me. Amen. Say it slow every Sunday. Say it on the day of the Mass you paid for. Say it any day you sit in a pew, whether you paid for that Mass or not. Every Mass is a chance to reach him. You've kept an old nun company today. My back is going to complain when I stand up from this chair. It always does. Come back and sit with me again. Before you go, sweetheart, do one thing for me. Tell me his name in the comments. His first name is enough. I keep a notebook by my chair, and I write down the names, and I pray for each one by name at night. Your husband will be on tonight's list. God bless you, and God rest him.